Hi, my name is Umul Ilham Edwin from the class DPM 3, and good evening to my lecturer Mr. Vasu, my lecturer for supply chain management. And today here I am to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the supply chain management in Malaysia. Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce the content of my presentation here. There are actually 6 contents in my presentation. Firstly, I would like to introduce what is supply chain management and also the understanding of COVID-19 and its effect. And the next thing that I would like to present is how COVID-19 affects the supply chain management in Malaysia, which industries are the most affected, and also what did the government do to overcome the effects of COVID-19. The consequences of the government actions, and also lastly, I would like to present the future post-pandemic plan of the supply chain management after the COVID-19. What is supply chain management? If you can see in the diagram here, supply chain management is actually a set of activities from the supplier to the end user. The end user refers to the customer or individuals or people like us, people who use the products. And supply chain management is concerned with activities starting from the place of creation, where raw materials are actually gathered and delivered into the manufacturing factory, and then they are produced into a product, then they are delivered again to a distributor to be distributed to retailers. At the retailers, the products will then be sold to the customers, and the customers can then use the products happily. Some of the examples of activities in the supply chain management includes production, distribution, and transportation. These are the 3 main things that I will talk about in my presentation later. Now that we understand a little basic of the supply chain management, let us proceed to the COVID-19 and its effect. What is COVID-19? COVID-19 actually is a name for a virus. It is a very dangerous virus, and it is the virus that shocked the world in 2019. And the virus actually is believed to be originated from Wuhan, China. What is the danger of this virus actually? Well, this virus actually can spread very easily, and no human has been seen to be immune to it. So it is very dangerous, and it has high levels of fatalities, which means more people who contracted the COVID-19 will be most likely to die when they are having the disease. COVID-19 is a virus that infects the respiratory system. It causes the lungs to become filled with fluids, or in other words, pneumonia. The individuals will then have a hard time to breathe. Now, how did this COVID-19 affect the people? When more and more people contracted the disease, there will be less and less workers able to come to work. Less and less workers means less productions, less work getting done, and less business profitability. And when more and more people are admitted to hospitals for this mysterious new disease, the government have to take certain actions to stop it from becoming a major crisis towards not only the public health but also to the economic activities of the country. It has become so serious that the WHO, or the World Health Organization, has declared a pandemic, which is a worldwide declaration of health emergency, that is very serious, and all the countries around the world has to follow a certain guidelines to contain the virus and make sure that the virus does not spread critically to the people of their country. During the declaration of the pandemic, a lot of countries, including Malaysia, has imposed various types of standards of procedures to stop the virus from spreading. One of these is the movement control order. Although the movement control order sounds like a very effective method of handling COVID-19, it actually has a very negative impact on the local businesses. Some of the businesses affected by the movement control orders are restaurants. This is due to the fact that more customers are actually buying materials, buying cooking products from the retail stores and decided to cook themselves at home instead of buying from the local restaurants. And the local restaurants are facing the reduction of customers daily, and some of the restaurants have to close down or even undergo bankruptcy. It is a very sad situation for the local businesses as they are not ready for the movement control order. However, after a few months of imposing the unprecedented method of handling a virus, the Malaysian statistics of COVID-19 starts to see the reduction of the daily cases from thousands to hundreds to less than 20. And then the situation of the COVID-19 starts to gain back to normal. During the movement control orders, many companies have to undergo redundancy, which means they have to fire some of their unproductive workers and their transportation are more restricted. This led to more businesses to shut down its activities. Now that we understand what is supply chain management and the effect of COVID-19, let us proceed to our third contents in this presentation, which is the effect of COVID-19 on supply chain management. There are three subtopics that I actually would like to present in these effects of COVID-19 towards the supply chain management in Malaysia. The first one is the production. During the initial breakout of the COVID-19, many of the workers in Malaysia contracted the COVID-19 disease and they are unable to come to work. This results in more factories to face lacking of workers in their factories, and many of them had to close down. Less resources are produced and the resources are actually in high demand, which is very hard to get because there are no workers to actually work on it. Other than that, the movement control order also causes the transport difficulty due to the fact that the government only allows a maximum range of movement for the suppliers to move from this area to its destination to reduce the effect of COVID-19 among the local citizens in Malaysia. Talking about the transportation difficulty leads us to our next point, which is the transportation. Transportation is very important in the supply chain management. This is due to the fact that the transportation helps delivering raw materials or products to its designated location. During the movement control order, many ports around Malaysia are asked to be closed. The government do not want to take risks receiving COVID-19 from the workers from foreign ships. This resulted in many of the foreign ships not being able to berth at the Malaysian ports. Now, the ports in Malaysia have to undergo a certain amount of loss, which is quite big, even if it only takes one day for the ports to be closed. Now, let's take a look at the maritime and shipping industry. It is not only Malaysia that imposed this kind of restriction towards its port. It is actually happening all around the world. Now, this resulted in the maritime and shipping industry to see less movement of their vessels on the sea. Less movement of vessels means less cargoes are being delivered, less business activities are being done, and there are a lot of loss of money. Loss of money resulted in the business to become shut down as they are not able to sustain a big amount of expenses. The maritime and shipping industry is one of the most affected industry in the supply chain management due to the COVID-19. But it still can survive because there is a need for the supply chain management activities to keep going on despite the COVID-19. Otherwise, the people around the world cannot get their products they actually need, the daily necessities that they need. Now let's take a look at the aviation industry. In Malaysia, the aviation industry are asked to stop its operation fully, including the domestic flying. It is estimated that from the Malaysian airlines that they are, during the initial announcement of the MCO, they are in a loss of about RM 13 billion, which is quite a lot for that business. But however, they managed to come back after the movement control order. Because the aviation industry is asked by the government to stop its full operation, the aviation industry is one of the most highly affected industry in the supply chain management due to COVID-19. Now, the next thing, the most favorite mode of transportation in the supply chain management is the trucks. Trucks are also facing serious issue, which is lack of manpower. So since truck is actually one of the most favorite, where do all the workers go? Many of the workers working in the trucks for the truck as a driver for the truck are actually contracting disease, or they are afraid to contract the disease. This resulted in less worker being able to come to work to become a driver for the logistic company, and less movement of trucks are seen on the roads, even though it is the most favorite, but it still can undergo its operation as usual because it has to supply daily necessities to the people, and even to the front lines of Malaysia that battles COVID-19. For the third point in the effect of COVID-19 in supply chain management is the distribution activities. When the movement control order was announced, a lot of people in Malaysia experienced a state of panic buying. It is an activity where more people are actually buying their daily necessities aggressively in one day, which resulted in the products to become not available for quite a long period of time. The result of the panic buying is the difficulty to distribute the products right on time, which means many other people, such as people from the B40 class, not being able to get their daily necessities to survive. Although distribution is not entirely impossible during the COVID-19, it is just difficult to be distributed because the fact that the resources are actually running out very, very fast. It is very hard for the distributing activities to be done on time, but it can also adopt different methods to overcome that challenge. Let us proceed to our fifth content in our presentation, which is the consequences of the government actions. And the first one is stimulate Malaysia's economic activities. Second one is to reduce the burden of Malaysian citizens, especially in financial terms. And the third one is to provide opportunities for business to survive. Let us proceed to our final points in our presentation today, the exciting post-pandemic plan of SCM. Here are the contents of my report during the post-pandemic plans of the SCM. The first one is outsourcing, digitalization, and also e-commerce. For the outsourcing, the long-term plan for the supply chain management is that they are able to reduce risk, increase flexibility, and focuses on core businesses, and they are able to respond quicker to changes. The fact that COVID-19 actually happens actually helps them to set up a new standard of procedures when in case there is another similar situations happens. The next thing is digitalization. Many companies realizes that companies that implemented technologies in their businesses are actually having more productivity during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are one of the least affected company during the COVID-19 pandemic. Digitalization provides quicker solutions to many problems in the warehouse, in the supply chain management themselves. And more companies are actually adopting the automated system, which is very good for the long-term solution of supply chain management. And more productivity of the supply chain management will also increase. The last one is the e-commerce. The fact that more businesses are being carried out online and being closed, and physical businesses are being closed down, e-commerce is one of the most famous activities in the supply chain management. Many of the Malaysian, after getting the one-off assistance, they turn to the e-commerce to survive in during the restrictions. It kept the economic activities alive, and there will be easier analysis of data, and business activities are actually increasing before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic. So that is all from me. My name is Umul Ilham Edwin from the class DPM 3, and thank you very much for listening.